Hey everyone, welcome to Beach Investing. I'm your host, Andrei Angelkovski. Today we have Marcel Gros. How are you, Marcel?
Excellent, Andrei.
Marcel's a mortgage broker with Dominion Lending, and he also has his own company, which is called Gros Real Estate Advisors, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what you specialize in, Marcel.
Yeah, sure. So what I tell people, I'm typically a real estate investor first, mortgage agent second, and educator and speaker. And really one of my specialties within the mortgage business is working with investors and working with private money.
So private money and investors. So that's something that, a topic that we're going to talk about today is private money, using your RSPs as a lender and as a borrower. And Marcel will go into detail about that. But this is a topic that is not really talked about that often, and people are not aware of this in terms of using their RSPs to lend out to people who want to use it for their real estate investments. So discuss this, tell our viewers, Marcel, about the two different options,
Yeah,
ways.
sure. So for most real estate investors, what you really got to do is wrap your head around, the equity investment versus an income investment. And really it's two different hats, and you sit on two different sides of the fence. But at the end of the day, it can be a great balanced portfolio. So for instance, on the income side, in which case you're acting like the bank using your RSPs, you're now utilizing your RSPs as a debt vehicle, and you're lending on, say for instance, a second mortgage on someone's property or something of that nature. On the equity side, that's just typical investing. But as the borrower, if you know how to or learn how to attract RRSP money, you can definitely utilize that money to leverage your portfolio. As in, apply second mortgages if you need them, and pull that equity out to go buy other properties.
So if I needed extra money to purchase a property, I can come to you and ask you, Marcel, I need $200,000 or $400,000 of private money to put as a down payment, or pretty much use it, categorize that as the first mortgage on a property.
Sure.
Is that possible?
Absolutely. So in that case, maybe the bank wouldn't do the first mortgage.
Yeah, if a bank can't do it.
Correct, because maybe the property is derelict, or whatever reason the borrower couldn't qualify, or you need to close really quick.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of where private money could be used. We bring it in, close the deal. You're going to pay a bit of a higher interest rate initially, but your term is defined, and you know that in 6 months you can replace that with a lender's senior financing.
Okay, and that's when you want to borrow money.
That's when you want to borrow money. So you're acting as the real estate investor, as the borrower.
Okay.
And we have some typical rates on the wall here. A first mortgage is going to range anywhere from 7 to 11%, and if it's a second mortgage, it's going to be in the 8 to 18% range. So all depending on the deal and the credit worthiness of that borrower.
So again, give our viewers an idea of why would someone be willing to pay 7 to 11% on a first mortgage where they can go to the bank and get 3.25% right now?
Well, that's exactly why they would. It would be if they can't get that bank money.
Okay.
Right? So this is not a case where you're running out just to get it. You're running out in a case where, let's say for instance, you can't get the bank money, or the property is derelict or in very rough condition where the bank won't lend on it.
Okay.
Right? In this case, you have no other choice, if the deal is good, but to use private money.
Okay.
Right? So that's where that would come in.
And what would be a scenario where you would use a second mortgage at 8 to 18%? Why would a borrower need a second mortgage?
Sure. So in a second mortgage case, there can be a number of reasons. Most of my investors, they're using second mortgages to leverage their portfolio. So in this case, they might be tapped out, or that they may just need a short-term loan to purchase another property or to bridge a gap. So in that case, second mortgages would be great, right? Okay. In the case of, on the commercial side, this is used a lot in the form of VTVs often, vendor takebacks. And even in the development world, the second mortgages and things of that nature are used to bridge the gap for development projects oftentimes. So wherever the bank won't come in, And we're seeing nowadays that the banks are really pulling back, especially in the rental market.
Yeah.
So their appetite changes with the wind, right? So it's definitely, as a sophisticated investor, a strategy that you want to have readily available in your back pocket to deploy. When the banks do decide that they're pulling out for a bit, right?
Yeah.
So you can still buy, you can still get into the market, and that's where the great deals are made, right?
Yeah, that's where you can get creative.
That's where you get creative, and you're doing the deal that most people can't do.
Right.
Right.
So that's the investor side. That's when you are a real estate investor looking to borrow funds. Now there's the other side where you can be a lender. You can have $150,000 in your RSP account, and it's really doing nothing for you. It's sitting there, probably even losing money.
Absolutely.
What can you do with that money? Can I lend it to someone?
Absolutely, and this is where I get really excited. This is what I do with my money. I do this with a lot of our investors' money as well. And going back to the whole RSP thing you mentioned, a lot of people don't know that you can use these registered vehicles to lend as debt, right? So your RSPs, your tax-free savings, your RESP account, all these vehicles are eligible under certain trustees to lend out as mortgages.
So including our real estate education savings plan?
Absolutely, yeah. Even your LIRA accounts, your RIF accounts, they're all eligible. So a lot of people don't realize that these vehicles are there. They're stuck with what they're given by maybe their banks or some other financial institution. But it's definitely a vehicle that, if you want consistent returns with the security of real estate, it's definitely a vehicle, with higher returns. It's definitely a vehicle that you want to look at and possibly diversify some of your funds to if it makes sense for your risk tolerance.
So I think it's important for our viewers to know that you are securing your RSPs or your registered funds against a property. So
absolutely.
You're not just like lending it out and here's a piece of paper that says I promise to pay you. It's actually secured.
Absolutely, yeah. This is not promissory note lending.
Right.
And that's definitely something I wouldn't advise for most people, for anyone. As a matter of fact, you are acting like the bank. This is a registered charge. You are directly registered against that property. No different from the bank. In this case, you may be in a second position, right? But you could also be in a first position.
Yep. So
you're no different from the bank. It's really a good place to be in, especially a nice, comfortable loan to value. Say 80, 75% or below. Making the type of rates that we have on the wall here, 8 to 12%. I mean, consistently in a great market that you've researched, where are you going to make those kinds of returns, right?
And especially with the certainty that these things offer, it's really unheard of, really, without that risk factor. And with the security of a property, you're really mitigating that risk.
Absolutely, yeah. And if this strategy is deployed correctly, I mean, you're mitigating the risk with the loan to value of the property. You're doing your research on the location, so you're in a sound location that you believe in. Yeah. You're researching the borrower, their credit worthiness. If you take all those things into consideration and you put them together correctly, combined with the right professionals on your side. I always say, make sure you have a great lawyer that understands this type of strategy.
And mortgage broker.
And mortgage broker for that in that case. Thank you. It's a strategy that you definitely can't go wrong on, and it's a great way to have consistent returns in your RSP.
And that's something that I'm learning more about, and I'm sure maybe some of our viewers are not aware of this, and they're just learning about it. And if you guys have more questions, which I'm sure you do, they can contact you.
Absolutely. I think if you can leave my contact.
I'll definitely leave it below the blog. And so you're saying we can earn these returns on our RSPs, eh? And that's standard. There's nothing.
Yeah, these are typical returns. They're obviously subject to the deal.
Yeah. And
this is the secondary market, so to speak, right? So, there's no rules per se with the deal and what you charge. It's an agreement between the lender and the borrower. So whatever you come to an agreement upon, those are the terms. Those are the terms of the mortgage. So
let me ask you for a specific example here. If you were to have a bunch of RSPs, you personally, or let's just say I did, and
sure.
I wanted to lend out my money to someone in Toronto. because I believe in Toronto, so I believe the market in Toronto is strong, so I trust that the property will not decrease in value, so I can be in a very risky position.
Right.
So I can imagine I feel comfortable with Toronto, but if I was to invest in a property, or if I was to lend my RSPs to a house in Windsor, for example,
right,
it would be a little bit more risky, right?
Well, I mean, that depends on your due diligence. I would say definitely that would be a lot riskier.
So would the interest rate maybe reflect that?
You definitely want to have the interest rate reflect the risk tolerance of the location of the property, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, a deal in Toronto, the beaches, for instance, or downtown Toronto. I mean there's no comparison to Windsor, right?
Yeah.
Or some other place. So, definitely the risk tolerance, the location of the property, definitely is one of the criteria that determines how high the rate will be.
Okay.
In addition to the creditworthiness and the deal terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcel.
Excellent.
I appreciate it. Great information.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.